It's a common complaint, and it's one thing that I've become acutely aware of over the last month riding the Bobber Black. The riding position is a strange mix of sit up and beg, feet forward, slightly leaning forward, and it's a position that doesn't suit everyone, me being one of them. Now, I have quite long arms, and having adjusted the seat backwards very slightly to get a comfortable position to operate the gear and rear brakes, I found that leaning outwards and stretching towards those handlebars was just a little bit beyond my comfort zone. At speed, it's no problem. When you notice it the most is at low manoeuvring speeds, where you feel as though you're sort of running out of arm as you're trying to steer the bike from lock to lock. And on long distance trips, you find that you're leaning forward but having to sort of look up, which can leave your neck aching after a long ride. The mini ape hangers sold by Triumph might go some way towards sorting this problem out, but they're not my style. They're a bit too Scooby-Doo for me. But luckily, it's not something that has slipped past the notice of MOTONE Customs, because a few months ago they introduced the up and over handlebar risers. Now, made from what I believe is CNC machined aluminium, these bar risers give you a 1-inch rise and a 1-inch pull back over the standard bar position. Enough to make a difference, but not enough that you have to think about changing to longer cables. They come complete as a riser and clamp set with stainless steel bolts, and once fitted, they afford you a much more relaxed and comfortable riding position without affecting the way the bike handles or steers. It's a relatively easy job that anyone can do, providing they have a decent set of tools, and I'll quickly go through it with you. Now, this job would be a little bit easier if you had a paddock stand or something similar, but failing that, make sure that your bike's stable on its side stand, and then between the front of the tank and the front forks, fastened onto the frame, is a cable tidy. Slacken this off just to give yourself a little bit of free play to the cables that go up to the handlebar controls. There's not an awful lot of cable in reserve, but there is just enough to make a difference if you need it. Now, the handlebar mounts are actually attached to the top yoke via a 14mm bolt situated underneath the yoke, and I found that the cable keepers that are situated under there just next to them actually got in the way with the tools that I had. So unless you have a very slim 14mm socket, you're probably going to have to remove these as well. First of all, just release the cables from the actual wire keeper and then unfasten the 2 bolts on each side that hold the keeper in place. Now, be careful, because these bolts also hold the instrument assembly in place. So put a cloth or something similar over your headlamp in order to avoid any scratches while you're messing about with the components. Once you got those off, get a towel or something similar, lay it over your tank, again in order to protect it from scratches when you start to disassemble the handlebars. Then crack open the 2 14mm nuts that hold the mounts in place. Don't undo them all the way, just 2 or 3 turns to break the seal. It's better to do this now than do it later on when you've removed the handlebars from the clamps. And once you've done that, unfasten the handlebar clamps and remove your handlebars. Rest your handlebars carefully on your tank. Make sure that they're stable and they're not going to slip off, and make sure that your tank is still well protected by that towel or whatever it is that you've used to protect it. You can then go ahead and remove those 14mm nuts all the way and take the mounts off. Now, at the head of the bolts that you take off, there are 2 large washers, one on each side. You're going to need those for your installation. So thread these onto the 15mm bolts that come supplied with your MOTONE riser kit. Now, where the original Triumph mounts meet the top yoke, there is a spacer washer on either side that sits inside the rubber mounting. Remove these, you don't need them for this installation. It's then time to start installing your new MOTONE mounts. Now, when you fasten these on, only fasten the bolts up finger tight, don't tighten them up fully yet. You're going to need to be able to spin the mounts very slightly to get everything lined up. And I always find the best way of doing this is to fit your handlebars next before tightening the mount bolts up. So having done that, the next step is to put your handlebars in place and fasten the clamps on. You need to fasten them on reasonably tightly so that the clamp surfaces mate with the handlebars and straighten the mounts up. Once you're happy that everything's straight and aligned properly, you can then go ahead and tighten the mount bolts up, and these should be tightened up to 38 Newton meters. Now slacken your clamps off slightly, make sure that your handlebars are in the position that you want them to be in, and then bit by bit start to tighten them down. Make sure that the gaps front and back of each clamp are approximately the same to ensure that there's even pressure on the clamps and you're not going to cause any damage. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and tighten them up fully to 24 Newton meters. Once again, once you've done this, check alignment of everything by sitting on the bike, turning the handlebars from lock to lock, make sure that your cables aren't snagging anywhere and that alignment looks right. You can then go ahead and put the instrument panel back on and fasten those cable keepers back in place. Once you're happy that your cables are all routed correctly and nothing's snagging anywhere, you can then go ahead and retighten that cable tidy back up. And that is pretty much it. The job is done. Now these up and over risers come in two different colours. There's a satinised aluminium finish and this black finish, which obviously I chose for the Bobber Black. They are the usual amazing MOTONE quality, really nicely finished, and anyone that doesn't know one of these bikes intimately wouldn't be able to tell them apart from the genuine article. It does, for me, make a huge difference in comfort when riding the bike. The whole thing does feel much more relaxed, and I know from reading through the forums that other people are of the same opinion. Well, I think that constitutes the first major modification to this Bobber Black. I am on the whole very pleased with it. I'll leave a link to Motone's webpage for these up and over risers for anyone that wants to have a look at them. I believe they do fit most of the water-cooled and air-cooled classic twins, but if in doubt, check with Motone on their website just to check compatibility. And that's about all I've got time for in this video. Once again, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you found it useful. If you have enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I am going to be back on Friday, so until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon.